Hello, welcome to another in my series of videos about how to get from pages you might print from crafting CDs, and this one's from a Hunkydory At Home CD, USB. So CDs, CD ROMs, USB keys, you end up with printed pages, and I just thought, you know, you can cut them out obviously and just put them together, but I think it's a great opportunity to bring some foiling into your designs if you've got a foiling platform. I'm using the Couture Creations GoPress Foil, and I've done some preparation for this card so that you don't have to watch me do everything. So I've got my topper sheet, and I'm going to be using this topper here, and I've printed from the same USB some coordinating paper, and it had this strip down one side in the contrasting colour, so I've cut that off and I've already put some foiling on this, and I'm going to cut that down to a narrower strip, put some of my glittery mirror card either side, and that will come down the centre of my card. So, and I've got my card blank ready, and I've matted and layered with some glittery mirror card, and my backing paper is going to go on there. And then when my strip is ready, that's going to come down one side, kind of there, and then there's a topper going to go on in 2 layers using this. Now, the technique for this is using cutting dies to actually create a foiled edge. So let me bring over some dies and show you what I mean. So I went through my collection of nesting cutting dies earlier to decide what I was going to use for this card. I've got a few possibilities. I've not brought out all the sizes, but that's one set that I've got. And then I've got this set. This I think is a Spellbinders die set. It's fancy oval shape. So it's a case of looking through your dies and seeing what you've got. The important thing to look for is, let me bring this up close to the camera, is at the cutting edge, still not focused, that's it, is in the middle of a nice wide rim, okay, because it's that rim that creates your foiling for you, okay. So it's always advisable to test out your foils and your cardstock before you start using something you don't want to spoil. So I've taken some plain white card, and I've used hot foil stamp to put some foiling here, and I'm going to do the same when I foil my printed topper as well, so you'll see how I've done that. And then what you do is you have your foil and you put your die on top of your foil, cutting side up, and you use the pressure of that rim to create that line, and then I'm going to cut this out using the same die. So before I go any further, let's cut that out, and then you'll see what we end up with. Put that out of the way. So I'm going to tape this down. I really don't want it to move, and it needs to be sat exactly over my blue foiled line. Now, if you haven't watched the introduction to this series of videos, I do suggest you go back and watch it, because there's more information there. And a quick flick through my collection of nesting dies so you can see what kind of collection I've got. I've been crafting a few years. I've got lots of sets of those. And from lots of different manufacturers as well. So there's that. Of course, if you've got them, you can use a cut and foil die to do this, although it won't fall right to the edge, but it will give you a decorative pattern near the edge. go there. So that's going to be, oops, matte layer for my topper. Okay, so let's show you how we do this. Let's get my die off of there. See, there's not much card wasted. So I'm going to use the next size down. So I shall put the others out of the way. And let's get my topper sheet back. So, to make it easier to add my hot foil stamping that I want for these bits, where the there's like a grey pattern on here, where I think in the sort of pre-cut, pre-foiled kit that went for this, rather than the USB, I think that would have been foiled. So I'm going to put some foiling on. It won't be exactly the same pattern, but it will give a similar impression. So I'm going to do that, but it will be easier to do that if I've got some square edges rather than trying to cut this oval out. Okay, so I'm going to make sure I keep this corner up here. I'm going to have to choose to sacrifice something, I think, to give myself a bit of room to cut this. Okay, so I'm going to cut out this chunk. And then just to make sure I've got a square on the end, I am going to then trim it up with my paper trimmer. Because it just makes lining everything up much easier. Not quite enough. Okay, so there I have my piece of card. And the first thing I need to do is add my foiling around the top. And in fact, now that I've got this cut out, let me bring that up to the camera so you can see. So you can see around the top here, down the bottom, there's sort of grey flowers, and that's why I'm going to put some foiling. It won't match exactly, but I think it'll look nice there. So let me get some hot foil stamps. Now, you may not have these exact ones, it really doesn't matter. So I can take this and I can decide where I roughly want to have some foiling, so maybe coming around there. Okay, I'm going to use a stamp press magnet, and I've got it wrapped up in masking tape so it's easy to grab hold of. And that's important, that you have the masking tape around it to make a handle. So that can go there, and now I don't have to hold that hot foil stamp in place. The magnet does it for me. So the next thing I need is my GoPress foil, and I'll take that off. Right, so my GoPress foil. Move that out of the way. And I'm going to open the lid, turn this upside down, line my card up with the corner, which is why I wanted it cut nice and square. Line that up there. I can hold the hot foil stamp down through the card. Don't take too long because it does start to warm up. Take the card off, and then I can let that warm up. So while that's warming up, let me point out this strip that I made used that same hot foil stamp, so that will coordinate nicely. Now the foils I'm using today, my turquoise is actually a Gemini papercraft foil. That's in turquoise, and as you can see, that works really nicely even with the GoPress and foil. And the other one I've got is a Couture Creations foil, and it's this, what's it called? It's silver foil, iridescent speckled pattern. It's like a glitter ball effect silver foil. So I need some of this one. Okay, and then I need to bring my GoPress and foil back over. Put my magnet away. Right, so I've got my card. So this is where you need to make sure you get things the right way up, because that was to go there, and I think that's the right way round. So I add my foil. I think I might actually just take the corners off the ends. It helps to avoid over foiling if you snip the corners. I'm not going to worry about the others because that's off the edge of my card anyway. So now I'll put my card in place, having put my foil down, and you go shiny side down. Take that in place. I need my shims. Let's do that. And I've already done some small tests to work out the right number of shims to use with my GoPress and foil and my die cutting machine and the card and the foil that I'm using. If you're not sure, do a trial on a small piece of card. Doesn't have to be the size of your hot floor stamp. You can just do a small area to see if your foiling is going to come out as good quality. So that's just warming up. Normally I leave my GoPress and foil on the base unit while I'm putting things in place, and I'm not trying to describe what I'm doing while I'm doing it. So it normally doesn't need to heat up again afterwards. So it's nearly there. There we are. So just rolling it through. And there we are. So it's going off the edge of where my die cut will be. Okay, I could do the same at the bottom as well, but I'll need to move the hot floor stamp while I do that, and then warm it up again. So let me take that off and leave it to cool. And while we're waiting, I'm going to get ready with this strip that I want. So this was what I cut off the side of my piece of glitter card, but it's just right for what I want, because I only want a thin strip of this. So I'm going to bring my trimmer back over. And let me see how wide this is. Oops, measure it on my trimmer. It's about 1¼ inches wide. 1¼ inches. So this wants to be a bit less than that. So I'm going to put this in. Now I want to make sure I cut it straight. So I'm going to grab an extra piece of card. Excuse my arm a moment. So this is just so that I can make sure I keep that piece straight. Because I'm getting rather close to the card and it's difficult to hold it. So let me go to there. So if my glitter card is 1¼ inches, I want this to be a bit less. Probably only about 1/8 of an inch less though. So if I go for 1 inch and 1/8, yeah, but maybe more in from this side first. So actually, I'm gonna take the white bit off to start with. Just take it down to that width. That's it. I'll take the rest of the other side. 1 inch. So I'm just trying to get this so I kind of keep the middle bit. Yeah, need a bit more for the other side. So I've cut it down to this thin strip. And that will go on my strip there. So let's put that together. Actually, let me get my next piece of foiling on my topper set up first. I can come back to that if I'm waiting for it to heat. So down the bottom, I'm going to do the same. Kind of like that. Okay, so let's get the magnet. Stick that in place. Again, back onto the GoPress and foil. Now I'm lining up with this corner. If my hot foil stamp needed to come further over, I could line up with the other corner instead. No, not that. So hold it down, hold down the hot foil stamp. Mind your fingers don't get too hot. Take the magnet off. And then that just needs to warm up. So I'll do that and then I'll come back to you. Okay, so I've done my foiling on the bottom of there, and next I need to foil the frame around the outside. Now when I did my layer earlier, the piece of foil I used for that, I cut the middle out of it so that I didn't get any over foiling in the middle. But also, because if I've done that carefully, kept it quite close to the edge of the die, as you'll see what I'm going to do here. Let me just bring the camera down a bit and zoom it. I've got the piece of foil I cut out from the middle taped down here with the die I'm going to use on a self-healing cutting mat. Now this mat I only use when I'm trimming foil, so it's not got any scuffs or anything in it that are going to actually damage the underside of my foil. You might want to put a piece of paper underneath, something like that. So I'm going to cut the middle out of my foil. I'm just going to use my craft knife and just go around the edge here. Don't need to be quite so neat as I was earlier because I haven't got another inside piece that I need. So just a few millimetres, or maybe about 1/8 of an inch from the edge of the cutting die is fine. It doesn't matter if you wibble and wobble a bit. Now I'm going to turn it around to make it easier to cut. So coming round here. I want you to see what I'm doing, but it's difficult to do what I'm doing without getting my fingers in the way. Okay, there's my piece of foil. I'm just going to try and trim that a little bit closer there. That's it. Okay, and then I need to put this on top of my topper. So let me just turn the mat back around. There, I have one there and one there. Let's put that up just a little bit. So, peeling my tape. I usually hold the die down while I'm peeling the tape. It makes it easier to peel the tape without disturbing the foil. Okay, pick it all up, get hold of your foil, and then that goes down onto your topper. Okay, now the advantage of having cut out the middle is also you can actually see where you're putting it. I can see my picture through the middle, and I can put my die on top. And I can make sure, now the thing is to make sure your image is straight within your die, which might not be quite straight in your foil. So just make sure you've got the die, there's definite up and down, you don't want it wonky. You definitely don't want a leaning bicycle. Come down a little bit more. Can I see the, yeah, so I want to be about there, I think. That's it, so nicely in my oval. And then I'm going to tape that down. So I'm taping the die and the foil down. Okay, so that's where that has ended up. Okay, so now I need my GoPress and foil. Let's put that out of the way. So on my GoPress and foil, I have a thin metal shim. It's a sort of metal shim that you use with a die cutting machine if you've got a very intricate die, or you're cutting fabric, mixed media dies, to give you extra pressure. Okay, it's only 0.5 millimetre thick. It's a really thin one. It's not the Couture Creations conversion plate, which is much thicker. So this is a thin metal shim, and I've got another one here. You can see this is a flexible metal plate. So this needs to go, oops, on here. I'm just going to put it sort of along the length. The second metal shim goes on top without the magnet, so that just goes on there. And then I'm going to put in, because I've done lots of practice with this, I know how many I need. So I've got a piece of A4 card, folded in half to make one double shim. Then I've got another A4 piece of card, and that's I'm using 250 GSM card, which is the same weight as I've printed my toppers on. It's not quite as thick as you'd use for a card base. So having put all that on there, that needs to warm up well. Okay, so I'm going to put that back on the base, and that needs to warm up for a minute or two, I would say. It's flashing red now. I'm probably going to leave it until it's gone green and then gone back to flashing red and back to green again. Okay, so in the meantime, I have stuck my foiled strip down onto my glittery card. And the reason I hadn't stuck my pattern paper down is because I want to put this in place and trim it to length before I do that. So I'm going to put some double-sided tape on the back of here. And then I need to stick this down on here. So what I'm going to do is peel my tape at one end. Line that up where I want it. Now, let's also bring my topper in, because that will determine where I want this as well. So that's going to be there. How much of that am I going to want showing? Now, I think I'm going to want it about there. So I'm going to line that up. I'm just going to do it by eye. I'm just going to gradually peel the tape, making sure it doesn't twist. And I think it's got enough stuck down now, it's not going to twist at all. I can just pull those out. And then I'm going to turn this over to the back, and where it's sticking out, I'm going to trim these bits off with some scissors. It's easiest to do this from the back, lining up with your backing paper. Because I'm foiling, I'm making sure I'm immediately putting those sticky bits in a bin. Or at least stuck down on something that I'm going to throw away. So I think my GoPress and foil is hot now. So I'm going to roll that through my die cutting machine. Just turn that slightly. It's quite a firm roll. It's about the same as when you're using cut and foil dies. Or cut and create dies from Couture Creations. It's that kind of a pressure. Okay. So that's rolled it once. Sorry, let me just turn the camera back. So I'm going to briefly take my shims off. I'm going to lift the top plate up and I'm going to turn this round, and I'm going to turn it at a slight angle as well. Let's just make sure that the pressure hits things in a different place. Put that back on. Put my shins back on. And then I'm going to make sure it's warm again. Now if I put it straight on the base and done that standing up, it could have been heating while I was doing it, but then you wouldn't have seen what I'd done. But I haven't taken the dye off, so I don't need to let it heat for so long. So literally it's flashing red now, and as soon as it goes green I'm going to roll it again. There we go. Okay, so I've got this, and now I'm just going to lift one piece of tape at a time and have a peep underneath to see if I think it's foiled properly. Now, you've taped on top of a die, so you might find you've cut bits of your tape off. So I'm just going to start to peel the foil. Just have a look. Yeah, that's looking good from that side. I'm going to put the tape back on that side while I look at the other side. Yep, that looks good. Okay, so I've literally, I'll show you to the camera. I've literally just picked it up as little as I can. I'm going to pick it up further for the camera to see it. Just looked underneath. Okay, so if I need to put it back down at that point, hopefully you've managed not to disturb anything, and you can just put it back down, put the tape back on, and heat it and roll it again if you need to. There we are. It all just wants to come off. There. Okay, so now I need to die cut it. My pieces of tape are getting smaller and smaller because I keep cutting chunks out of them. Let's have some more over here. Now when I've taped it down, before I die cut it, I quite often turn it around and have a look at it from a different angle, because sometimes I then realise I'm not quite lined up. Oh, and on my die cutting machine here, on my plate, I've just got a piece of copy paper, just protect the surface of my topper from any scuffs that might be on my cutting plates. there we are. Okay, camera's crooked. There we are. That's it. So, always remember to take your dies off your scrap card. So let's see where we are with this. So I've got my base layer, my topper, and that will go on there. So it's going to need some foam pads, it's going to need a sentiment yet, but that's where I am so far. So let me sort out the bits and pieces I need for the sentiment, and I'll come back to you and we'll finish putting the card together. Hello. So I have now, we've got our completed topper and its matte layer, and I've stuck my pattern paper down on the card blank with its decorative strip. Remember, the decorative strip went on before we stuck that backing paper down. I've added all my foam pads, so now I can start putting my card together, and I chosen a sentiment. I've chosen a sentiment, and I decided to make this a thank you card, and I decided to use sentiment hot foil stamp that I've got, and this is from the Spellbinders Elegant Occasion sentiment set. So let me just put it that way around. So that's the thank you. There's birthday, sympathy, congratulations, and I think I get well in that set, and they come with the coordinating dies to cut them out. So I've foiled it and I've cut it out. I've just foiled it in my turquoise card on a piece of white card, and actually I printed on the other side of this card, it's a piece of scrap left over from another project. So there we are. I like to make sure I use up all the card I can, and then I've cut it out again just in the white card, and I'm just going to stick the two layers together to make it a bit more rigid, because I'm going to put it up on foam pads, and that will help to give it a bit more support. So let me stick those together before I go any further, and then that can be setting while I stick my other layers down. I've just got some craft PVA type glue. I think this is actually a fabric glue, but yeah, whatever you normally use to stick pieces of card together. Just got it in a fine tip bottle. Sliding around. Okay, so that glue can dry while I'm sticking these down, and I've decided my sentiment's gonna just come at the bottom here somewhere. So let's stick this layer down. Of course, you could make it a flat card if you needed to keep it flat for posting. It doesn't really matter which way up this goes, it's more or less symmetrical. So I'm just going to hover over my card, put this down, make sure it's in the centre, That's that one. Let's do this one in the centre of this one. That there. Now this, I'm going to put it down here. So I'm going to need some foam pads on it, one end to hold it up. I'm going to cut these into small pieces. I'm definitely going to need double height at that end. I'm just going to put down 2 layers of pad there. And then work out where it's going to go and if I need anything else. So, just about there. Go a little bit under the end of the Y. Yep, that'll be fine. So I glue on the other end. And there's our finished card. So thank you for watching, and happy crafting.